4 days, we'll get more details, where they will pick up street children from the Central Business District and start their rehabilitation. We should start showing you some of those images now. Now, according to our records, the last time this happened was in January 2017, when the Governor Evans Kidero-led county government picked up at least 2,000 street children in the same manner. We want to talk about this approach to dealing with this societal problem and what are the long-lasting solutions. But first, let's show you some of those pictures that our crew were able to pick up for you or to record for you last night.
Niko sana na mama, alafu nikaiba simu.
Ukaiba simu?
Iba ya jirani. Nikakuja tao.
Ukakuja tao. Na tangu kama tao maisha iko.
Maisha ni ngumu tu, kulala baridi. Saa zingine naweza shikwa.
Umewahi shikwa? Mara ngapi?
Moja.
Ukapelekwa?
Nikapelekwa Makadara. Nikapigwa huko, nikatoroka huko. Nikarudi tao. Naweza soma mimi. Nasoma.
Na uko na wazazi huko nyumbani mahali ulitoka?
Mamangu.
Ulikosana na mamako ndio ukakuja hapa ama uliendaje?
Mamangu ndiye alikuwa anasumbua.
Been trying to make Nairobi a better place to live in. Recently we were dealing with magas. Now we are dealing with the chokoras and the street families. We want to rescue them to better places where they can live. Maybe they can be rehabilitated and changed to good citizens.
Well, joining me in studio to talk about this societal problem and what needs to be done to deal with it is Mr. Robert Njogu. Let me start from the far right there. Secretary, Street Families Rehabilitation Trust Fund. Next to him, the gentleman you saw speaking during that operation, Peter Mbaya, Deputy Director, Inspectorate Department, Nairobi County. And right here next to me is Frederick Ochieng, Village Director, SOS Children's Village. Let me start with you, Mr. Mbaya. Tell us a little bit about the operation that took place last night. How many street children, although some of them look like they are now adults, were picked up, and of course, how was the operation carried out?
The operation was successful. We had the operation for like 2 hours. We were able to arrest like 200. Most of them were adults whom we took to Central Police Station, Kamukunji, and the Makongeni Police Station. Those who were under 18 were taken to rehabilitation centers, YWCA, Makadara. Then those street families, the women with children, were taken to Kayole.
Okay, when you say some of them were taken to the police stations, what's next? Where are they going to from there? Were they taken there because they are perceived to have committed some crime, or is that part of the transferring process to wherever they'll eventually end up?
Not necessarily that they are committed crime, but we have some law. We have a law where we can charge them for being in the streets. So we took them there that they be taken to court this morning.
Okay.
Right now they're in court.
All right. Right now they're in court.
Yeah.
Because of being on the streets.
Yes.
Which is an offense according to the Constitution. And so what is and again, just trying to understand this for the benefit of our viewers. So what's the long-term approach? What's the long-term plan? Because how will then this play out, and what has happened with those for whom that has happened to them in the past?
Our plan is to get rid of them out of the streets, maybe to better places. Those who are under age can be taken to school. Those who are over age, maybe we try and change them to be good citizens. Okay. Since they are Kenyans.
Okay, let me bring in Robert Njogu. Now, tell us a little bit about the Street Families Rehabilitation Trust Fund, established, I believe, in 2003. You have some money that you're given. For example, I know that the national government, according to some figures I've seen, financial year 2017-2018 was allocated 264.95 million. With a target of 3,000 street families. County government had 63 million to rescue and rehabilitate 2,000 street children. Let's talk about your mandate and what you do with the funds once you receive them.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, viewers. I'm Robert Njogu. I'm the head of the Street Family Rehabilitation Trust Fund. And this trust fund was established in 2003 through a gazette notice. It was essentially established to address the concerns of the homeless and the vulnerable children found in the streets and urban towns of this nation. We have an ambitious vision. We focus having a country free of street families. Now, our overall mandate is to coordinate rescue, rehabilitation, and reintegration of street families. As you have mentioned, in the last financial year, we allocated 264 million. And essentially what we do, because we do not have institutions of our own, we do what we call private partnership with caregivers, with already existing institutions which are dealing with the street children. And then we fund them to undertake that mandate on our behalf. So the money we give them is supposed to take care of their upkeep. It is supposed to take care of their education. It is supposed to take care of their rescue, rehabilitation, integration, and all that pertains with that rehabilitation and so on. I want to say that already we have disbursed 253 million this year to 35 institutions which are taking care of over 6,000 children and so on. I want to say that since the establishment of this trust fund about 15 years ago, I took over the trust fund in 2015, so I'm just about 3 years old there. But I realized that we have serious legal loopholes, particularly on the issue of legal, our legal mandate and so on. We realized that we don't have a policy. For instance, I cannot go to a certain county and, well, ask the governor about the street families. He will ask me who am I, and so on. So we realized that we have a loophole, and we embarked on the development of a national policy of street families. And we believe that this will be a working tool for us to realize our mandate, because it will address all the issues which pertains to the street families.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
I'll come back to you to get a bit more on that. Let me bring Mr. Frederick into this discussion. What leads to the influx of street children in the country, and even specifically in Nairobi County, which I believe, and some of the graphics we do have for you, 60,000, it's estimated there are 60,000 street children in Nairobi. When you look at the space, when you look at that population, that is a community on its own. Let's talk about some of those issues.
Thank you very much. Thank you, viewers. The most unfortunate thing I would want to say about the issue of street families is, number one, that it is a problem that was not starting today. It's something that way back in 1982, when some workshop was held to discuss this problem, the first time that it was ever recognized as a real issue or a matter of concern. And then the Provincial Children's Office and the PC at that time organized a task force together to be able to sit down and discuss the issues surrounding the street kids. And then this led even to a workshop. I mean, out of this task force, there was a paper that was, a position paper that was presented for purposes of addressing this problem. What was not envisaged, and even as I hear my brother talking here, was a policy or a situation of street families. And so it was believed that the juvenile institutions would take care of this. And what we have had to deal with is a sudden influx of these families with the limited facilities and the NGOs responding to this not being able to cope with it. One of the problems, even as you saw the clip, children saying conflicts within the families. Some are talking about poverty. Some are running away because they have to fend for those families. In fact, from the previous studies, you find that the highest number is child-headed homes. The biggest problem, even as we talk about those figures, is that we've never had a permanent solution on this matter. It's been knee-jerk, it's been force.
Do you feel that this approach that happened yesterday was knee-jerk?
It was knee-jerk because the problem has not come to us today. I mean, if you're a financial analyst, you will tell people that they start saving slowly. They plan for difficult times while they are easy. But we have seen this. Even during the Governor Kidero's time, there was an ambitious plan to rehabilitate Ruai. And I'm happy to hear that even that is part of the plan for the 1.5 billion shillings that has been allocated to address the issues. But again, you are looking at, are we addressing the root causes in the family, in the community? so that we are saying we are responding. When you look at the street families and treat them as problems, it's a social problem. Is an issue that is coming because of the socioeconomic malaise that is affecting our nation, and not only a problem of Kenya, but also across the world.
Speaking of Kenya, I quickly want to take you to Mombasa County also to get an update on what's happening there in regards to the challenge of street families. Before I allow Mr. Mbaya to respond to what you've said about that particular approach, Ashabi Kidusa, good morning. We know that you'll be talking to the head of the Inspectorate, Mombasa County, on street families. Maybe you can let us know what is the situation regarding street families in Mombasa County?
Well, good morning to you, Waihiga. Right now, I'm at the head of the Inspectorate offices here in Mombasa, and I'll be speaking to...
Okay, well, another technical challenge there. We apologize to you, and let me come straight to Mr. Mbaya now. We've seen this last year with the Kidero-led administration. Wake up one morning, announce an operation, pick up about 2,000 street children. We're not sure where they are now, whether they were rehabilitated, whether they went back to the streets. What was the thinking behind this approach? When did you wake up and decide, starting yesterday, we are going to pick these guys up? And have you thought through the long-term implications of what you're going to do with them? You're talking about 200, the statistics say 60,000. My goodness, that's a big gap.
As I can say, we started this operation since November.
Since November?
Yes.
Okay.
It's only that it was not very much, the impact was not very much felt. But yesterday we decided to do it in a big way that we can reduce the number. Like today, if you went to town, there were very few.
Right now, if we had a correspondent in town, they would not see...
You may see a few of them, but due to the big number we arrested last night, the streets are almost empty of street boys. Now, it has been done there before. We have always been taking them to those places, but they sneak out of places and they come back to the street. Again, you see, every time there are new ones who are coming to town. Those who have been rehabilitated, who have changed now, they are good citizens. But still, problems are still there. So some are still coming back.
Do we have any statistics, and this is to the three of you, about how many are rehabilitated? Do we have any numbers that can give a sense of hope? Because we get the feeling that if they don't like where you take them, by later this year, early next year, they'll be back on those same streets. I don't know if anyone... I can tell you for a fact that there's no official figures on this. Why? I could give you examples of when the Street Rehabilitation Fund was initiated by the late Karisa Maitha in terms of trying to help these children. Some joined NYS, and there were stories later of them not, as a result of not securing employment, found themselves back in the streets. So in terms of success stories, sustainable, I think there are no official figures, because first of all, it's not been something that has been given the attention that it deserves. As I've said, there is no deliberate policy. As you say, they're being taken to courts, and then nobody cares where they would be. Nobody cares about the issues that need to be addressed. Are they criminals, as you're asking? Because that is the basis of which we are going to say this is sustainable. We track results, we track impact, then we will be able to say we've done something. Bwana Njogu, I can give you a chance to respond to that. You mentioned that there was a challenge and you worked on a national policy. Will this national policy look in some of the issues that Frederick has raised?
Actually, thank you. It is addressing all these issues. Indeed, it has moved to several stages. Yesterday, we are having validation workshop for the same, and it was validated, so it will move to the next level. This is, of course, in the spirit of public participation. And we are going to address all these issues. Bonahiga, I don't advocate the way, the rehabilitation we are seeing on the screen. We usually, as a trustee fund, we advocate a humane way of dealing with these children. Okay. They are our children, they belong to this Kenya, they are Kenyans. They have their rights to live. As much as we think that most of the crime, petty crime happening in the street is associated with the street families. It's not all of them. Some are actually children who should be under the custody who should be protected rather. So we advocate a way where we use social workers. They go and talk to them, convince them why they should move from the street, and then take them to rehab centers and so on. Otherwise, the policy is addressing all these things. It is laying down all the responsibilities and roles of all the agencies. We are going to partner even with the county government. In fact, plans are underway to come up with what we are calling county chapters, such that we are going to have representatives in all the counties, such that if there is a problem in any of the county, we can get in touch with our people on the ground and give us the actual picture which is there. Also on the issue of the numbers.
Yes, knowing what are the statistics in each county, for example.
Yeah, I want to say that, as here my colleague has said, the actual numbers are not known. And the numbers which are quoted, 200 to 250 to 100,000 to 300,000, these numbers, I tend to think, whoever did the statistics forecast all the street persons, the mama boga, the hawkers in the street, the socialites in the street. You know, if you count all those, the numbers will be huge. But the actual numbers of the street families is not yet known, and that's why also, as a trust fund, we are coming up with a national census of street families. This is already.
When is this going to happen?
In fact, this is work on program, and we are even supposed to have started in the third week of January. But due to circumstances beyond our control, we were unable to do that. But this is something we are undertaking. We have done a lot of planning. We have done piloting in the various counties, and this work will start.
This is data you make available to the public.
Yes, we shall disseminate this data, because we believe that without a good statistic, you cannot plan efficiently and effectively. So that's why we decided to do this national census.
Mr. Mbaya, both your guests sitting next to you on either side are concerned about the manner in which these street children are being picked up. Are you concerned as well? I must confess, I was surprised when I saw the manner in which some of them were being stuffed into those city council vehicles. You know, our role is a bit complicated. You know, how so? Nobody would like to be arrested, so at times we get some resistance, and then they also fight back. But we are trying as much as possible to treat them very well. It's the picture doesn't look like that, Mr. Mbaya. You see, now I mean, both the speakers have raised. It's not even me; it's them who've raised concerns. I mean, there's one gentleman I saw the head was being pushed in. I understand why they might resent your institution at this moment. If you saw very well, yes, the person was trying to raise his head. So if he was to be pushed in, yes, he would have hit the vehicle. Then it could be hurt. So the gentleman was trying to bring down the head that he can get into the. This is another. So you have another 3 days of this operation. How long is it running on for? No, it will continue. It will continue. It's only the major one. The one we started yesterday will be for 3 days, but it has been continuous and it's going on. So in terms of the rehabilitation, is it your body now that handles this? Do you hand over to their group? Do you hand over to the NGOs? What then happens next? Just help us understand which bodies then take over from where you left. No, there are some questions which I may not answer. Which you may not answer here. Yeah, I only answer the operation questions. Okay, but there are those who are in court. You expect the court to do its own duty. Yes. There are those you've taken to juvenile homes. Yes. You say that they should then take over the process. What can you say is the bigger problem? Because I'm sure they speak to you. I'm sure yesterday they were telling you, I don't want to go there. I've been there before. What were they telling you as you were out on the street? No, some of them are saying that they are not willing. You know, most of them are not used to bathing. They don't like such things. They don't like that orderly life. They are used to freestyle life, whereby in the street they do whatever they want. But you see, when they are taken to those homes, there are some order, which they don't like. That is why they don't like the places. Not that they are being mistreated. In fact, they are treated very well in those homes. Okay. Do you have a reaction before I go to Mr. Njogu to talk a bit about infrastructure? Yeah, I was just saying that one of the big concerns that we have, that has colored most of the manner in which we address street families issues is, like I would say,
a lack of some thoughtfulness in it, because as you remove the numbers or the families from the streets, it should be clear where you are going to take them. And then you find, even as you walk across the streets, there are those who are permanently in the streets, there are those who are part-timers, and you will find that there are those who, you know, they are families, and when you talk to them, it is about the problems that are there. They are coming to seek employment. But I think we've also given them all manner of names when they get into the streets. There are those who take the criminals that take advantage of this genuine
societal problem.
Yes, and ride on that. And I think that is what, for me, would be addressed. And I forgive him because even as he says operations, I think this is a multi-agency response, which ideally should be saying from where are we going? Where are we taking these people? Because you also want a solution. It may not be a complete resolution of it, but how are you proactively addressing this thing as and when it comes?
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Njogu, let me come to you. Let's talk about rehabilitation infrastructure. Some of this, again, does this fall under your body? We are told there are 4 rehabilitation centers run by the Nairobi County government. We are also told about the construction of a Ruai rehab center. Where are we in regards to that? I don't know if you're the best person to answer that question.
Okay, what I can say about infrastructure, is as a trustee fund, we had intended to construct a model rehab center. And we have even procured some land, but due to some logistics, we have not yet started that project. But all the same...
so the Ruai project is not yet... Construction hasn't started?
Possibly funding, you know, it requires some huge funding.
Okay.
And so on. So we have not been funded in terms of development. The money you mentioned there, the funds you have mentioned there, is purely recurrent operations, rehabilitation, some of the operational requirements, and so on. So we have not yet built a rehab center. All the same, we partner with the county government in one way or another. For instance, at that time when I think there was another major operation, I tend to think it could have been prior to the Obama coming. And we worked hand in hand. We worked hand in hand with the county government. And I remember I provided quite a lot, some items, including food, mattresses, blankets, and the 4 homes are under the management of the county government.
Okay.
They are not under the management of our trust fund.
Okay.
But occasionally, when, for instance, some things to give out or areas we can partner, we do that very well. There is an officer called Mr. Mwema, who is actually my friend at work here. That department, I think, is also under him. And even yesterday, we had a very fruitful discussion with him. He attended our validation. He even introduced him to our chair, BOT, and they had a fruitful discussion of how we can enhance our partnership to ensure, particularly Nairobi, is clean. Because Nairobi is a nice show. When I'm given that fund, everybody will ask me, you are given so much money to clear Nairobi, yet we continue seeing street families. And I feel like I'm doing nothing as much as we are talking about disbursing over 253 million to partner institutions who are hosting around 6,000 street children and so on and so forth. But all the same, I also want to say, you see, population keep on increasing. And as the population increases, also socio-economic problems also increase.
Okay.
There are more children and so on.
Okay, I want to talk a bit more about that, but before that, let's see if we can get Asha Bikidusa in Mombasa County. Before we had a challenge with her, she was talking to, or about to speak to the head of the Inspectorate Department to talk about street families in Mombasa. Do we have the same challenges there as there are in Nairobi County? Asha, tafadhali tupashe.
Yeah, thank you, Wahiga. At the head of Inspectorate here in Mombasa, in Chuda Katu.
Sounding almost repetitive. We apologize for that. We clearly have a problem, and we're going to leave it with that. Mr. Njogu, there's something interesting you said. You said that a lot of pressure from society asking this street family rehabilitation trust fund has a budget, allocates, but we see the numbers increasing. So what do you feel are the challenges with your department? Is it funds allocation? Is it the planning? Is it that the problem is just too big?
Well, Monahiga, I think there are several challenges. But what I want to say is that you see, like now, for instance, when you see little children in the street borrowing, I mean, asking for money, begging, these children should be in school. So there is a legislation which governs. But we have the Basic Education Act. We have the Children Act and so on. And such children are supposed to be in school. Those parents who allow their children to go to the street to beg, action should be taken. So
I was about to ask, what should happen to those parents?
So should
they be arrested?
They should be arrested, possibly be given some mild
punishment of some
punishment, so that they can go back to take care of their children. And if they are punished the first time, they will not go back. Indeed, in the Coast Province, like Maridi area, that's what they do. If any child is cited anywhere, there's an operation that child is profiled, and either he's taken back to their parent, or they are taken to child protection centers, and you find no street children around Maridi. Those who defy, particularly the parents, and take their children out there, they are arrested. They are given some, they are reprimanded, and because they know that will happen to them, nobody dare to allow their children to go just anyhow like that into the streets and so on, unless we have a multi-agency approach where the Basic Education Act is enforced, that all children should be in school. The government has come up with free education, free primary education, free secondary education. So children have no reason, parents have no reason to not to take their children to school. So if such a law is enforced, then we shall not have children just idling in town or urban towns, urban areas.
Let me get reactions from the guest here. Of course, with that free secondary, free primary education, we know that there are still some costs depending on how you look at it, and that might be a challenge for some. Mr. Mbaya, let me come to you. In September last year, Governor Sonko promised street children in Nairobi CBD would be employed as cleaners, provided by with housing by the county government, and by then he was already governor, so we can assume that was not a campaign promise, it was a declaration of a sitting governor. Let's talk about proactive approaches to getting children away from the streets, to stopping them before they get onto the streets. I want you to carry on from where he left off, even as we look at what the governor had promised.
No, ours is to get rid of them from the streets, but not to harm them. Just to take them to places where they can be taken care of, where they can be rehabilitated to be good citizens. Those who are underage can go to school. Those who are past the age now, maybe when they turn to good citizens, maybe they get some employment, they get employments.
Do you feel your job would be easier if we found a way to prevent them from going to the streets? Would you have less to do? Because I get the feeling that you're going to be doing this every year. Unless we look at what is causing them to get onto the streets.
No, now that one, it's not something we can control completely. That you don't see any. They'll keep on coming. Some of you. What we do is to control the numbers. We control the numbers to go down.
Okay.
Because the law does not allow them to be given some harsh punishment. But then the law says if you are to be taken to court, they either fined and then they come back, or when they are rehabilitated, maybe that is when we get a solution, a better solution, because they need to come back to the street.
Okay. Frederick, let me come to you. Get your thoughts on now what needs to be done, because clearly if we keep going to the streets to collect them and take them to different centers, if they're not happy, they'll come back. So how do you stop them from getting onto the streets in the first place?
I want to talk about SOS Children's Villages, for example, for what we have done for the last 40 or so years that we have been in existence in Kenya. One of the things we believe in is that a child is best placed in a family in a family. That's where they can be cared for. That's where most of their needs can be met. But when such a child is at risk, or when such an environment is not there, then we come in. We have two approaches that we deal with when we are working for children. We have those children who are at risk of losing parental care, for reasons that we have heard from our colleagues here, either in the streets or there's a problem in the family. We have our family child strengthening program that is trying to prevent abandonment, that is trying to intervene for such families. So what we do is the element of capacity building. We are providing nutrition, because sometimes we've known helplessness comes when you're not able to provide or to take care of the needs of your children, and ultimately link them up through some programs where they can find sustainable income. So they either come as a group together and come up with a project And from there, we are teaching them how to catch fish.
Okay.
That way, you are guaranteed that that child will not exit from the family into the streets.
Go back to the streets and be a problem.
So those ones who have completely lost parental care for one reason or another, we put them in our family-based care units, which are available across the country. We are here in Nairobi, in Mombasa, in Eldoret, Meru, and we are in Kisumu. So the reality here is the numbers are so much, the needs are so enormous that sometimes it is just a drop in the ocean. In fact, our founder was saying the only cure for inhumanity is if we can take responsibility for each other, which then calls for the interagency response,
yes,
which can help. We are looking at prevention. How do you address the issues in the family, in the community? Because ultimately, if the community is strong, then they would be able to take care of these people.
Mm-hmm.
How are you doing? What are you doing regarding protection intervention? And that brings about the element of advocacy. How do we tell everybody, like he's saying in Malindi, so everybody is sensitized,
plays a part, yes.
So that kids who are supposed to be going to school should be in school. Or you question when you find a child in the streets. Then we are talking about now rehabilitation. And rehabilitation is for those ones who are high risk, for example, who have gotten into drugs. A lot of the problems, we will be told, border around psychosocial support. If a child cannot get some food, if they cannot get their issues being addressed in terms of health, there is a problem.
Is there a feeling, and even as we wrap up this discussion, that society does not really take the street child problem seriously? Both of you have expressed different challenges. For you, funding, clearly you're not getting what you need. The fact that the funding for the Ruai Center is not fully out indicates that there are other priorities where the money has gone to instead. So does Nairobi not take this problem as seriously as it should? Let me start with you, Mr. Njogu.
Thank you, Bonahiga. I think the society, the community, does not take care of the children. But you see, if you try to look at the areas where they are there is a Muslim dominance, the Muslims take care of their children.
Now, from a faith perspective, you talk about the faith
from
group.
the faith perspective. If, for instance, there are domestic issues, they are addressed at that point. And you really, rather, let me say that there are very few Muslim children in the streets compared to others, and so on. So in a way, the society
that's an interesting perspective.
failing. Yeah, the society is failing. But at the same again, there are several agencies which should do more than what they are doing. We should ensure that the children are in school, and all what it takes to ensure that it should be done. If it is enforcement of those laws, if it is could it be jailing some people to ensure that the children are not begging in the streets. That's the way to go. Then also, we should have a concerted effort. There should be collaboration with all the agencies who are charged with the responsibility of taking care of these street families. At the county level, the county is charged with the responsibility of taking care of their street children. Ours is just to coordinate. We can come in to enhance that, whatever they are doing, and so on and so forth. And I'm ready for that.
Okay.
The trustee fund is ready for that.
Okay.
Yes.
Sambaya, what can we expect in terms of operations moving forward? How often will you conduct them? What are you looking for in terms of targets? If the numbers are 60,000, you need to do a lot more operations if you want to fully clean. Because what I can assume is now that there's a gap in the CBD, those who are sleeping outside the CBD now know CBD is safe. The people who had taken over the corners have gone. What's your long-term plan?
Now, our long-term plan is to control them, that the number get reduced. We reduce the number from whatever number you are saying now. Now, what we do will ensure that the operation goes on and take them to the rightful place, that we don't get very many of them in the streets. The problem is that our neighboring counties, most of them who are in town come from our neighboring counties. So they keep on coming in, but I'm very sure when we enhance our operations, at least the number will go down.
Okay. And finally, Frederick, vicious cycle, clean them off the streets or get them off the streets, take them to different centers. Others in other counties come and take those positions after a few months, get these ones out. Yeah. Another group come in as well. How are we going to end all this?
One of the things I want to say was back then, it was very difficult, as he says, for even a problem in a family to get out of hand, because like the Grameen Bank values, everybody would respond when there was a problem.
This is the bank in Bangladesh?
Yes, okay. Yes. So, but what do we see today? People are, I have to call you to tell you, even if I am your brother, that I'm coming. I have to...
You don't just show up.
I don't just show up. But those, our fathers, everybody who grew up in Nairobi talked about how they lived with him. They were not even relatives. And therefore, it was very difficult for anything to, the family unit to be broken, because there was intervention from the community. And I think if we get to that place, then we'd be talking about a long-term solution. For me, the way to go, even as they have put it in one of their, the trust fund program, rehabilitation, reintegration is the key thing. It is slow, but sure.
It's the only way.
The only way it will work, because you want these children to be in the family. You want to go back to the family and say, what is the root cause of this problem? Why are you coming out of the street? What about that family? If it is parenting skills, if it is on protection and care, can it be given? If it is something to support the families with livelihood, like an income generating activity, can it be there? But also that advocacy is there and everybody gets interested. Because one of the things that I've seen, even as they are struggling, the public is complaining about these families.
So they're under pressure?
They're under pressure. I once engaged, we had a meeting with the Provincial Children's Office, and they were saying they didn't have a budget. The street families are there. There's nothing they can do. Yet you hear there's some allocation. I think it is high time that all those investments are put in towards reintegration, because and there are very good arms of government that can help with tracing. You cannot fail to locate where a child is coming from. The other problem is, even as you take them to those institutions, look at the conditions of those institutions. I was once at Nairobi remand, and one of the officers was telling me there is no such thing as government. Children belong to the government. So what happens? I mean, it is the question of shauri yako, but little knowing that shauri yako would be shauri yangu as well.
In the future.
So I think it's high time that we just confronted this sustainably, not reactionary.
Great. I think that's a good place to leave this discussion. Thank you so much to each of my guests. We're going to have this discussion again in the next couple of months. I hope each of you will still be available, because we cannot leave this here. We need to talk about how to push this forward. We need to push any players that may not be here who need to take this societal problem very seriously. We were joined by Robert Njogu, Secretary, Street Families Rehabilitation Trust Fund. Next to him, Peter Mbaya, Deputy Director, Inspectorate Department, Nairobi County, who had a very long night last night, but still found time to be here with us. And right here next to me, Frederick Ocheng, Village Director, SOS Children's Village. Thank you so much for watching the broadcast. Time now for a quick break, I believe. You're watching Citizen Extra. We'll be right back.